Live from PJH Girth Radio in session.
Thank you, Alexander, for coming in and
Thank you.
hanging out. And I'm actually talking to the director of The People vs. George Lucas on May the 4th.
Oh, that's right. Oh my God, I even forgot about that. Well, may the 4th be with you, man.
May the 4th be with you. You didn't celebrate Star Wars Day?
No, I'm sort of in the shower right now.
Okay, yes. That's
in
the new
psycho
documentary.
shower, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So you don't have time to shower George Lucas with like Star Wars love. Your focus today is Alfred Hitchcock.
That's right. But yeah, no, that's a good catch.
There you go. We're off to a good start, right?
Yeah, exactly. The perfect nerdy start, right?
Perfect nerdy start. So explain what you do and just kind of a little bit of your background and your body of work, because you kind of have a consistent theme with your work.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously I do, pop culture docs and, with my company Exhibit Pictures, that's our, focus. And, I love when pop culture and cinema sort of converge to give you these sort of moments that change everything. Star Wars changed everything. The shower scene
practically invented
everything.
the blockbuster along with Jaws. Star Wars.
Yeah. I mean, it was a brand new experience. It was, unlike anything we had ever seen. It was almost like experiencing a new medium. Just like people, experiencing the shower scene in 1960. They had never seen anything, like it.
Yeah.
So those are the things that really sort of excite me as a filmmaker, and I think they're very important and they're very important to look at. And so I want to, I want to create cinematic experiences that celebrate the importance of those moments.
That's a really good way to put it, because that's what this new documentary is about, 7852.
Yep.
Just for people who don't know, what is the 7852 reference?
So 78 is essentially the number of setups for the scene, which was actually shot over 7 days. And ultimately the scene had 52 cuts. So 78 really refers to pre-production, production, 52 to post-production.
All right. And of course, the documentary focuses on the infamous Janet Leigh shower scene.
That's right.
Yeah. Where poor Janet Leigh died.
She did.
A horrific
she sure
death.
did. And I've seen that death over and over and over again.
How many years you work on this doc? 3?
3 years, yeah. So, watching the scene maybe 20 times a day, It's a lot of, yeah.
That is a lot.
It's a lot of murder.
That is a lot of murder. That should be the tagline for
It's a whole lot of murder
for the documentary. Seeing something that consistent that often, is it kind of similar to like when you're in the editing room and you're kind of going over scene after scene, like when you're working on your own pictures? Because sometimes in the editing room, filmmakers can kind of get lost and it's hard to kind of see, and it's like hard to find your way again. But you keep seeing new things when you keep watching it.
Yes.
After 3 years.
Yeah. I mean, I can honestly say that after, 3 years of working on that scene, basically full time, I'm starting now to understand it. I think it still has a lot of mysteries and secrets that perhaps I will reveal in a follow-up film at some point down the road.
Oh, you got secrets too.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, there's other, I think there's other stuff I want to focus on right now, but I'm definitely not ruling out a completely different kind of film about the shower scene, because it's unbelievable. I mean, the more you watch it, the more you see things, and it's virtually endless.
It's funny because like when I watched Psycho, I'm guessing this must have been like the late 80s, early 90s. I don't remember the first time I saw it, but the first time I saw it, the shower scene was startling. But it was the Milton, the private investigator, when he gets killed, because then Hitchcock, when Hitchcock puts the camera like looking down, and then the mother comes out of the room and she takes him to the top of the stairs. I was like, "Oh snap!" that murder was really startling to me, far more than the shower scene.
Yeah, it's pretty creepy. I mean, it's amazing the way he did that. Did that too. But yeah.
Like, what came first into your life? Was it Hitchcock or Psycho?
It was Hitchcock, and I mean, I guess it may have been Psycho, although I sort of highly doubt it. But I was watching Hitchcock films, when I was 5-6 years old, so it really feels to me like he was always around.
Yeah, I used to watch a TV show along with The Twilight Zone as a kid.
There you go. Yeah, The Twilight Zone. Obviously, all that stuff. It was like catnip.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I was just really fascinated, and I just kept going back, to his movies, and my parents obviously loved his films, and that's they exposed me to to his work.
My mom the same way. She loves North by Northeast, but she thinks Psycho is kind of like he's slumming it a little bit, like it's not cheesy, but it's just kind of like whatever, like it's not his classic like.
Well, I mean, North by Northwest to me is it's a very classic sort of grand sort of Technicolor, beautiful film, but it's not as, to me, it's not as complex as a Psycho. It's not as complex as a Vertigo, or a Rear Window, or, those sort of darker movies.
Those are the ones I like, the Vertigo.
Me too. And I love North by Northwest, but I tend to be attracted more by those, darker, more mysterious movies that seem to be so much more layered,
And so you focus on the shower scene in this documentary, and you have a number of prominent people, both creators and also some editors. Who's the list of the people that you have in the documentary? This is a really cool list.
You want the full list? You want me to make sure I don't forget anybody?
Because there's a lot. But
there's a lot. I mean, you've got Guillermo del Toro, Jamie Lee Curtis, Elijah Wood, Eli Roth, Walter Murch, Peter Bogdanovich. I mean, many, just incredible people. Richard Stanley. So lots of horror, icons, phenomenal, iconic editors as well. But I also really wanted to kind of strike that balance between, the older generation and the younger generation, to make it clear that the scene is still, very, very relevant today. I mean, here we are 57 years later, and we're still talking about that scene, and we're still, we're still not, there's still so much more to discover about it. I mean, that's what I was trying to say, and so I think, my film, I think, is really going to please not just, Hitchcock nerds, but also people who actually may have never watched Psycho. I've been touring with the film now for 3 months. And I actually ask that question every time. So, is there anybody in the house who hasn't seen Psycho yet? And there's always, a couple of hands that go up. And I think that's really cool. That means that there's a curiosity about the scene. And therefore, hopefully they'll want to go and watch it afterwards.
It's interesting that it's like there's people still haven't seen Psycho. I mean, there's been 3 or 4 sequels after it. There's been a TV show now. 3, yeah. And so it's like it still had a life since 1960. It still continues to resonate, like Norman Bates and the Bates Hotel, all those kind of things. Yeah.
No, it's really interesting. It's almost like Psycho is in the air again. There's this artist, can't remember her name now, who recently at the MoMA, I think in New York, she did like a Psycho barn installation. It's like
what was it?
Yeah. It was like on the rooftop, Maybe it was at the Met.
This rings a bell,
But it's like and then James Franco, who did a whole exhibit on on Psycho. So I don't know what it is, but this movie keeps coming back, and it's not like I planned to time the release of 7052 to go with that, but it's really interesting to see that it's very much in the air.
One of the people you mentioned, Walter Murch, and you had a couple of editors kind of talking about the different cuts and editing and stuff like this.
Yeah.
That's the other thing too, is what editors do in film and stuff is a lot. The general public doesn't really kind of have a good grasp of it and the subtlety and the work and stuff like that. And guys like Walter Murch are great because they can convey that way. They can translate what they do in a way that's easy to comprehend.
Yeah, no, I mean, Walter Murch for me, personally, was actually really the holy grail. I think to be able to talk to sort of the greatest living editor about a scene that is really known for its groundbreaking editing. It was such a blast. I mean, I don't think I've ever been such a sort of my inner fanboy just went crazy, when he said yes to the interview and, got to go to his blueberry farm in Northern California and just talk to him about the shower scene for 2.5 hours was a pretty special moment. Yeah,
the editors, especially when you're watching you're watching your documentary, they're fascinated by the scene. They can see different things.
Yes,
right.
Yes.
I mean, you and I were talking about off air. We were just having lunch and we were talking about magic and magicians. And when I hang out with magicians too, they see other magicians in action and they can start to see where the hand is going and they can see different things. But they're still like enjoying the actual magic, if that makes sense. They're seeing it on two levels.
Yes.
Whereas the audience is like, I didn't know that quarter was behind my ear, right?
That's
So
right.
the audience only gets to one level. But the editors in your documentary, they were seeing it on the two levels. And that was kind of interesting.
Well, it's really interesting that you mentioned that because I've always sort of looked at Hitchcock as a cross between P.T. Barnum and Houdini. I think he was the ultimate entertainer and he is the ultimate sort of movie trick magician. So, I'm very interested actually to talk to magicians about the shower scene because I think the shower scene is a trick. It is virtually a magic trick. I mean, that's what he does. And I think that's why it fascinates, editors and people who are actually really interested in movies because he does it with the medium of film. And what's unbelievable to me is that I've obviously had the opportunity to interview some amazing big editors, and at one point during each of those interviews they will say, "This is the greatest cut I've ever seen," right? But they're all talking about a different cut. So this just to me this is mind blowing that scene continues to have this extraordinary impact on some of the greatest editors that are alive right now. Working in Hollywood. It's pretty special.
It's sleight of hand, right?
It is,
and that's partly what your one of the I guess sub themes of your documentaries is like you very rarely see the knife kind of go in. You kind of just right. So it's all sleight of hand. The audience is kind of filling in the gaps. I can't remember where I read it. I might have read it or might have seen it, but David Fincher was talking. He was at a party. He did Seven, of course,
right,
and. He was at a party. He met this woman. She's like, "So what do you do?" And he's like, "I'm a filmmaker or whatever." And then she's like, "Have I seen any of your stuff?" And he's like, "I did this movie. And he's like, "I did Seven." And she starts hitting him with her purse.
Really?
And she was like, "That movie Seven was the most violent thing. So many people died, but a lot of the people died off camera. Like the guys that Kevin Spacey was killing they died off camera. So the audience was filling in the gap." So in her mind, what she was seeing was a completely violent film, but none of that was actually physically shot in there.
Yeah.
And so when the audience fills in the gap, that's also like a weird commentary in the audience. And I think that's where Hitchcock is like super smart.
Oh my God, yeah.
Let's see how dark and creepy you are.
Well, that's right. Yeah. Well, and also, at the time, I mean, he pretty much had to do it because of censorship and, the Legion of Decency and all of that stuff. So in a way it was by necessity, but I think in another way, I think you're right. It was also by design. I think he liked the challenge of figuring out a way to let the audience connect the dots in their minds and make them feel like they had seen things that he didn't show them. It is magic. Yeah.
Magic.
Yeah.
So does that change then when we go to the Gus Van Sant version of Psycho? Because you mentioned there was a scene or two that Gus had in that they weren't able to show in the original Psycho when Hitchcock was shooting it.
Yeah, I mean, the Gus Van Sant thing is interesting because it's and I'm really glad, by the way, that this movie exists because
you're kind of in the minority of that, aren't you?
Well, I said I'm glad it exists. I didn't say I like it.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm glad it exists because I think it becomes a really interesting sort of side-by-side comparison. On the one hand, you have this film that was humongously ambitious that Hitchcock didn't really have completely the means to pull off. I mean, really, quite frankly, I think what he envisioned, the cameras to pull it off didn't exist at the time. I mean, that's just a reality. I mean, you look at the fact that he had to resort to an optical to do the shot from the eye to the newspaper and, things like that, which, today we could animate, if we needed to do that, And so then the question becomes, how is it possible then that the Gus Van Sant movie, which, was shot the same way,
scene for scene,
shot for shot, and, well, they certainly tried to edit it the same way. Why is it that it doesn't work the same? And my pet theory is that what makes the shower scene so great, in fact, what makes anything great, is the mistakes, it's the flaws, is the things that happen that you cannot possibly plan for because you cannot possibly replicate that. The fact that he had to resort to an optical, the fact that Janet Leigh took a breath and he had to cut back to the shower head.
This is, of course, after she's draped over the shower.
Right, exactly.
So she's supposed to be, quote unquote, dead.
That's right. All those things are, those flaws, I think you look at the greatest works of art and there are flaws in them. But, a flaw is something that you can't sort of consciously try to replicate. And, sure enough, we interviewed the editor of the Gus Van Sant, Psycho, and she said, we cut it the exact same way and it just didn't work. And I'm very grateful, by the way, for her honesty. I think it's a wonderful thing to say. But it makes you really think about sort of the magic, going back to that word, the magic that happens between the frames. There is a magic to movies that you just, when it happens, you can't replicate it. It's like we keep trying to replicate the Star Wars magic.
Yeah.
Ain't gonna happen. Sorry, ain't gonna happen. you know?
Is that kind of then, is contradiction the right word? Whereas like the theme of your film is that Hitchcock planned all this stuff. He figured out storyboards. He had Saul Bass, all these different things, and then all these flaws happen. So it's kind of like as much as he detailed down to the last thing or whatever, then all these flaws. So it's like a weird kind of. Is that a contradiction or what is that exactly?
No, that is the. You're getting to the crux of it now. That is one of the great many paradoxes of the shower scene.
Paradox. That's a better word. Yeah.
I mean, the shower scene is both elegant and gross. It is both impressionistic and expressionistic. It's all of those things. It's everything at it's life. The shower scene is life. It's amazing. I mean, it is full of contradictions. Mm-hmm. And that's another reason why it fascinates me, because you can go round and round and round and you'll never, ever, ever get to the bottom of it. I guarantee you will never, I will never get to the bottom of that scene. And I'm probably going to spend a fair amount of time studying it for the rest of my life. I intend to live another 40, 50 years. So watch out.
You're going to spend the rest of your life potentially on 4 minutes out of 109
Well, I mean, I'll do other things too.
No, I know.
But yes, no, I definitely want to continue studying that scene. I think it's a very worthwhile endeavor. I think it holds the key to a lot of sort of questions about the creative process. I think it's a phenomenal sort of Pandora's box to open, and it's hugely entertaining to me to do that.
Nothing stands out for you in terms of the other murders in the rest of the film, because you basically just do focus only on the shower scene.
Right. No, I mean, of course the Arbogast murder is it's pretty spectacular. There's no question about it. But
doesn't have the same contradictions, I guess. And
no, and it's not. I don't think I could make a feature film about that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how many scenes can you make a feature film about? I think that's the question right there.
The murder of Janet Leigh, too, was kind of like one of the first spoiler alerts, right? We never really had proper spoiler alerts before.
Right.
Do you feel like Psycho kind of changed and altered the ritual of movies and going to movies? And
completely. I mean, that's the thing, is that, what people don't understand is that back in the day, people would walk in and out of movies. You'd walk into the middle of a film, you watch the end, it starts again, and then at the point where you started, you just started walking out. So there was a sort of tremendous sort of movement, of audiences walking in theaters. Well, Psycho changed all of that, and in fact, you can actually say that the shower scene changed all of that, because Hitchcock couldn't possibly have people walking in either during or right after the shower scene. It just wouldn't be the same experience. So he basically forced movie theaters to make sure that nobody would walk in once the movie begins. So the reason why we line up to watch movies now is because of Psycho.
All right.
And because of the shower scene.
And the reason we go block to block at movies now is because of movies like Star Wars and John.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So now you have these movies that sort of expanded on that, that ritual, or changed the ritual, but the main sort of ritual change, the ritual of movie watching was profoundly altered by the shower scene.
Was Hitchcock ultimately happy or satisfied with Psycho, or like where did it fit into his like canon? Because he obviously created, like we just mentioned, like Rear Window, Vertigo. Like, dude has an impressive list of like his IMDb is solid.
Yeah, you think? Yeah, I mean it's more than solid. I mean, the guy you're talking about, he made probably 12 masterpieces, 30, 40 great films. Well, that's the thing that I just admire so much about the man, is that he was 61 years old when he made Psycho. And that was just on the heels of North by Northwest. He had absolutely nothing left to prove, right? He could have just said, I'm throwing in a towel now, I'm done. And he would still be the celebrated master that he is now.
Mm-hmm.
So what does he do? Instead of playing it safe, he picks up this pulp novel that, everybody thought was beneath him, and he says, that's my next film. And, nobody wanted to fund it. He didn't have the budget, so, he funded it mostly himself. And he took the greatest risk because I think he saw an opportunity to reinvent himself, to do something. And I would even venture to say he saw the chance to create his greatest cinematic trick ever. I think the shower scene is the one thing that Hitchcock had been seeking his entire life. And when he saw it, he decided to take 7 days to do it. That's my pet theory, but I don't know why anybody any director in his right mind would take 7 days to shoot something like this, except that he saw something or sensed something about it that he knew would change everything. And
Vision.
It's vision. It's amazing. It's amazing. But it was that search for the magic trick, you know, that's the Houdini part of Hitchcock.
Yeah.
And he found it. And I think that, to me, he never reached that apex anymore after that. The Birds is phenomenal. I mean, no question about it. He did great things after that. But that, I think, was the ultimate trick that he was after.
You grew up, or you're from Switzerland, right? So how does the lens of like some of the sexuality and stuff in Psycho kind of change from a European perspective to an American perspective? Because the way we view sexuality is a lot different than Europe, right? So
yeah, we're not a puritanical society, obviously.
We're
certainly not in my family, So
that's a different interview.
Well, yeah, it's a different interview, but I mean, come on. Yeah, I was watching Psycho when I was 5-6 years old, so I remember watching Night of the Living Dead at that time and Scanners and all those movies. So
well, that's a good childhood, though.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome, because I think all the people that I've interviewed for Dawn of the Dead, were like, oh man, we watched those films also when we were young, but we had to figure out a way to watch them without our parents knowing. You know, at least my parents knew.
There's always that one bad kid whose parents not watching at all what they're watching, and then you can always go to their house and then watch Ed.
That's right. I was that kid. Yeah, that was me.
You were the bad kid, the troublemaker.
Yeah.
So how does the sexuality kind of change then between the two countries, or from the perspective? I guess, can you even comment on that, or?
Well, I mean, I don't know about I don't know about Switzerland specifically. I mean, Switzerland is a weird sort of society. It's very conservative. It's very sort of guarded, on that front. So I don't know necessarily that. I know, but to be honest, I couldn't tell you how it was received in Switzerland. But I'm actually finding out some really interesting things along the way on my sort of world tour right now. To give you an example, was in Helsinki recently, and I learned that in 1960, when Psycho came out, they actually excised the shower scene.
What?
Yeah. So get this. So the shower scene, so it goes, mother pulls the curtain, Janet Leigh turns around, you go from close-up, extreme close-up, to her open mouth, cut to the shot going to the newspaper.
What? That doesn't even make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. And the theory goes right now, I mean, at least they're saying the reason why it took so long for Finland to actually get a true sort of genre, horror industry, is because they were deprived of that moment for so long.
That makes sense, because there's no kindling.
It does.
There's no kindling, so how are you going to have a spark?
Right. That's right. So you can't, they didn't get shocked out of their minds.
Yeah.
The way that most of us did. I'm going to, so going back to Switzerland, it makes me wonder now, was the shower scene removed? I don't know. Like, culture to culture, it's interesting to see how that movie was censored as well,
And people react, and you're finding people are still reacting even this day and age, like, to the shower scene, because there's all these kind of like layers and stuff like that, women's lib movement, all these kind of things, right? So
of course
everything's kind of evolved and changed, obviously, since 1960, and so the reaction is still kind of shock and stuff like this, or is there now all those extra layers? Like,
no, I mean, I think it is. I think it's a really interesting movie to think about in terms of what did that do? I mean, I think there's clearly some very positive aspects to what the scene did in terms of breaking taboos and introducing new sort of elements of technique or whatever. But there's a very negative impact on it. I think the sort of the ripple effect of the shower scene, and what it several horror films do is questionable, as well. But I think that's a very I think it's a very healthy discussion to have, and I think that's why it was very important for me to obviously interview a number of women, and women filmmakers, and be a part of that conversation, because that's a very different experience. I think if you're a woman watching the shower scene than if you're a man watching the shower scene.
For sure, yeah.
There's no question about that. So yeah, I mean, it is.
And it's also layered because it's like a dude dressed as a woman too.
Well, exactly, right? So you have all that stuff. But the thing that's remarkable too, that one of the things that we don't talk about very much in Hitchcock films, because he has certainly been accused of misogyny, on certain fronts. But you look at the character of Janet Leigh, especially in 1960. This is a really, really strong female character. I mean, first of all, she makes a decision because she's in love with this guy to steal $40,000. I mean, she has a very comfortable, solid life. She takes a huge risk, drives there, makes the choice, which, by the way, at the time, a woman alone wouldn't go to a motel like this.
Right.
So she has the guts to do that. And then she realizes she's made a mistake and she doesn't want to go down that path anymore. And she has the courage to say, I'm going to return that money, the following day. I mean, I'm sorry, she's a role model. She's a very, very strong woman. So yeah, then there are people who are going to say, okay, but then she gets murdered, right? So that's questionable in and of itself. But I think beyond that, to me, I think this is really Hitchcock's sort of point of view. I think this idea that the Hollywood ending, the character making the moral choice, and then walking off into the sunset, that's nice, but that's a fabricated reality. The reality is it doesn't always happen that way,
especially in horror too.
Well, in any in any genre and in life, and I think that's the moral universe that he exposes through Psycho, and I think that was so scary and terrifying. Because nothing like this had been done before.
You have one more screening up at Hot Docs, and then what happens to the doc after that?
It's going all over the place. I mean, I'm going to be touring with the film for close to a year, and I mean, literally going to a different country every week. IFC is releasing it in the US, Kino Smith in Canada, Dogwolf in the UK, all kinds of other distributors, So there will be limited theatrical release in the fall. And we're hoping for some really cool, DVD, Blu-ray box, chock full of extras after that. So,
okay.
Yeah.
The extras include other interviews
and Netflix
or
and all that. Yeah, I mean, we're working on that. We're starting to have the conversation. I would like it to be a very special edition because I think it deserves that. I think there's, so much more that we could have included. So that's the hope. Yeah.
Okay. Before you go, what kind of comic books are you reading? Are you reading at all on your journey across the world, or you have anything that you want to recommend?
Oh man, I love comics. I love the sort of sort of little rare gems, stuff that are difficult to find. But I don't know, man. I mean, I'm always a big fan of Preacher, Chew, Transmetropolitan, I mean, things like that to me.
You like them dark too in the comics.
Yeah, well, of course, dark and messed up, I think that's what comics are all about, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I have so many recommendations, but, people should check out our company as well, Fried Comics, friedcomics.com. Very, very, dark and demented.
Okay, we got to end it there. That's a positive note, right?
That's right.
We went full circle, right? From dark and demented comics to a dark and demented movie by Hitchcock to your documentary. And
yeah, for sure.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you. It was a real pleasure. I appreciate it.
Talking magic and Houdini and Hitchcock.
And with some good booze right here.
Yeah,
too,
I can't feel my face. Yeah, yeah, it's a great drink. Thanks.
All right, man. Thanks.